It's your girl Kayla.
And it's your girl Alaya.
And we're back at it again with another podcast. And in this podcast, we're going to be talking about a book we read in English class called Slaughterhouse-Five, written by
Kurt Vonnegut.
So, in this book, it was a lot going on, a lot of war.
A lot of everything.
A lot of bombings.
A lot of firebombs.
Time traveling, all that. So, basically, we're going to be connecting Slaughterhouse-Five to the cave allegory theory, the movie Arrival, and things in our personal lives and things that go on within today's society. So we're basically, our essential question for this is, what do we have control over and what don't we have control over as an individual, community, and species? So I'm going to tell you guys about the cave allegory. 2,400 years ago, a famous thinker named Plato said, life is like being chained up in a cave, forced to watch shadows feeding against a cave wall. So there are three prisoners that are chained up together facing a wall, and all they see is shadows. And so the shadows they see, they name them things. And they, for instance, they see a dog and they name it a butterfly. They don't really know what stuff is because they're in a cave and they never really seen the outside world. So one day, one prisoner got released. And he's seen the sun, he's seen the birds, he's seen the bees, he's seen everything. So he went back to tell his friends what he's seen, and they didn't believe him at all. They thought he was crazy, and they just thought what he was saying wasn't true.
So he was a truth teller, that's what you said.
Yeah, he was a truth teller. Like, in contrast, this relates to Slaughterhouse-Five, because Billy is a truth teller as well, because he believes the Trophmodorians are real, but people like his daughter don't believe him. Throughout the book, his daughter calls him senile because she thinks that the Trophmodorians are fake. And the cave allegory theory and Slaughterhouse-Five both relate to each other, because Plato is basically saying that he's a philosopher, and a lot of people don't believe philosophers because they think their theories aren't true. And Billy is kind of like a philosopher because he knows what he's doing is right, and he knows his whole theory is true.
So how does Billy being a truth teller relate to us?
Well, it relates to us because we have things in our life that we have control over and things that we don't have control over. For instance, we have control of what we do, who we hang out, our actions, things that we say to others. And like, kind of similar to Billy, he doesn't really have the control he thinks he has, because he time travels back and forth, and he doesn't have control of when he's going to die, and he doesn't have control of his wife's death, and he doesn't have control of his accident. So we don't really have control over our future. We have control of the present things in life.
Okay, so now I'm gonna explain to you guys about Arrival. So in Arrival, the main character, Dr. Banks, she was having flashbacks. Well, she thought that they were flashbacks, but she didn't really understand what was going on. So then these 7 pods arrived around the world in different places like America, China, all around the world. And so they recruit her to come explain to, like, what's going on, what do these people want, what do these aliens want, what can we do so they can go home or whatever. And so Dr. Banks starts to develop a relationship with the aliens, and she starts to become endorsed into their language, into everything. And while she's getting to know these people, these aliens, our people are going out of control. They're scared. They don't know what's going on. They want to blow them up. So ultimately, Dr. Banks saves the world, but Dr. Banks saves the world through controlling her flashbacks, understanding what's going on with her so she can understand how to help the rest of the world.
Alaya, so what do you think Dr. Banks, what doesn't she have control over?
Dr. Banks has control over her relationship that she's gaining with the aliens. But what Dr. Banks does not have control over, she doesn't have control over how the people in the outside world is seeing these aliens. So she has to kind of control both the aliens and the people.
So I think Dr. Banks, she doesn't really have control of herself seeing the future. Like, she just has these flashbacks and she just can't control them because they happen at any given time. But how does this relate to society, her control?
Dr. Banks not having control on society, it makes it seem like because no one really has control over society because we're all a part of society and we all think different and we all act different. So nobody can really control society.
So how does this relate to Slaughterhouse-Five?
Well, Dr. Banks is like a truth teller just like Billy. So Dr. Banks is trying to free the rest of the world from the cave, which at the end of the movie she does free them and the aliens do go back home. So Dr. Bank and Billy are like almost similar because they both interacted with aliens. Billy interacted with the Chalkmandorians and Dr. Banks interacted with the other type of aliens.
With the pods, yes.
Okay, so Kayla, after like reading about the cave allegory, watching the movie Arrival, and reading the book about Slaughterhouse-Five, what do you have control over? And what does, on an individual level, on a community level, on a species level?
Well, I believe after reading these books and seeing the movie, I believe as human beings, we don't really have control over our lives like we think we do. Like we have control of what we do on our everyday basis. We have control of how we affect certain individuals and we have control of how we affect ourselves.
I agree.
But we don't have control over our future, but we have control over what we do in the present. Alaya, what do you think?
I think that we have control over, we don't have control over much. All we have control over is what we say and do in the present. Because we can't control our future, we can't control our past, because some of those things are already predetermined for us. So we can't really control much.
Kind of like a manifest destiny.
Yeah. Kayla, so do you think that if we could see our life all at one time, would it make the world better or like a worse place?
Well, I like how you said that because it relates how the Chalkmandorians could see life all as one occurring moment.
Yeah.
But I think if we seen our life like that, it would make the world worse because people would be afraid to chase their dreams because they would be scared to do certain things, and then people would basically be afraid of failure. So it actually make the world worse because people would be afraid to not reach their goal.
Well, let me cut in on that. I would say that I think it would make the world better. I feel like for me to be able to see what I will become in the future will like motivate me more to like, oh, I gotta work hard, I gotta keep doing it, I gotta keep going. So I feel like it'll make it better, but then it'll make it worse.
Okay, so that sounds, I agree with you, Alaya.
I agree with you too. I feel like we have like a mutual understanding.
We did. So we just want to thank you guys
for tuning in to our podcast.
For listening. You guys are great listeners, and we'll be back at it again with another video.
Podcast.
Godspeed.